Quantity Surveyor by profession. I'm also a professional UK garage DJ, goes by the name of Sean Harvey.
So your sobriety journey, let's get stuck into it.
Yeah.
When did you start drinking?
Around 14. My real problems with alcohol didn't happen then.
Yeah.
They were gradual and they got worse in my older life. People might have seen me have one or two,
Yeah.
and that's what I let you see.
Were you turning to the alcohol then to just almost block out what was going on in your reality?
100%, yeah. Fell in love with garage music. Needed an identity,
Yeah.
and becoming this MC was going to give me that. I'm on a trajectory to get high, and that's where I'm going. No one's going to stop me. What's more painful is recognizing the hurt that you cause people around you.
What was the pivotal moment that you had where you went, I really need to get some help?
I just knew in that moment that I couldn't throw her away.
Wow. You okay? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. You are tuned in to Real Talk with Nat. I am your host, Natalie Naman, and we have an incredible guest here today, Sean. Hold on, I need to check something before we start. Sean Harvey or Sean Bolton?
Well, my government name, as they say, is Sean Bolton.
Okay.
Sean Harvey is the name that most people know me by, and that's my DJ name. But
Okay.
Harvey is actually my middle name, so
Okay.
it hasn't just been plucked out of thin air.
It's not just a random name.
It's not a random name.
Okay.
No, Sean Harvey Bolton is
I
my
know you as
full name.
Sean Harvey.
Yes.
And then when I see your messages pop up on Greg's phone, it's like Sean Bolton. I'm like, Sean Bolton, oh, Sean Harvey.
Yeah, it throws people a lot of
Yeah.
the time. Yeah, and certainly in my sort of day-to-day line of work, I get a lot of people saying to me when we first meet, are you Sean Harvey or Sean Bolton?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good icebreaker.
It
Gives
is.
us something to talk about
And
initially.
at least there's some sort of correlation with the name, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly
So
that.
do you want to give a little intro just into who you are, what you do, and then we'll get stuck in?
Yeah, sure. So Sean Harvey or Sean Bolton, whichever you know me as best. 40 years old. First and foremost, I'm a father of 4 beautiful children, partner to Hollie. Quantity Surveyor by profession. I'm also a professional UK garage DJ, goes by the name of Sean Harvey. Bedford born and bred. And that's about it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk mostly about your sobriety journey.
Yes.
But before
Yeah.
we do that, because
Yeah.
there's lots that we're going to cover on that,
Yeah.
let's go back a little bit. And I just would love to know a little bit more about what life used to look like for you when you were younger, your childhood, school days. all
Yeah,
of that.
sure. Okay. So, as I say, I was born in Bedford, 1984. Mother Beverly, father Tony. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I've got a brother Jay, and a sister Katie. And we had a great life. Certainly in my younger years, my dad was a businessman, a fairly successful businessman when I was younger. We lived in a very nice house, a 4-bed detached property in a new estate in Wootton, a village called Wootton, which then was a fraction of the size it is now. I live in Wootton now, and it's massive compared to what it was back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we had a good life. Ironically, my dad was an alcoholic, so
Okay.
yeah, so things got complicated when I got to around 11, 12 years old. He was an alcoholic, but he was also a risk taker. So he took some business risks, and our family home was used as collateral for those risks. And
Wow.
unfortunately, yeah, when I was around about 11, 12 years old, we lost the family home, which was a difficult experience. I mean, I was protected from what was going on in, most of the time. I spent a lot of time at friends' houses, because obviously whilst that complicated scenario was unfolding, things were not great between my mum and dad, and it was just decided that I was best to be kept away from that. And so that was a difficult moment. And
Can
then,
you remember that time well?
Yes and no. So there's parts of it that I remember very well, but having grown up now and looking back and learning more about it through speaking to my mum and my brother and my sister, for example, there's lots that went on that I didn't see, and I can just see how well protected I was from what was going on.
Yeah.
And I think that was primarily down to my mum. My mum would have just been like, it's not good for him to be here, so let's get him somewhere else. Fortunately, I had some good friends with great parents, and I spent a lot of time with them. So yeah, I remember parts of it, but there's so much that just is a blur from that period of my life. Yeah,
which is probably a good thing.
I think so. Yeah.
Protecting yourself a little bit, maybe,
Yeah,
from some things.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thank my mum for that.
Yeah. Good. Cool. So that was when you were what, 12, 13?
11, 12,
12.
11, 12. Yeah. So we lost the family home.
Yeah.
As I say, we lived in Wootton at the time. And the only option open to us at that point in time was to go into social housing. This is where things got really difficult for me personally, I think, was, 11, 12. So we've gone from quite a wealthy upbringing to all of a sudden moving into Kempston, into a council house. My dad, unfortunately, couldn't take the failure, so he left. At that same point in time, my brother was 16 and my sister was 18. My sister moved to Wales because she had met a fella. So she went to Wales, and my brother joined the parachute regiment. So he went off into the army. So for me, it went from a family unit to all of a sudden it's me and my mum living in a council house in Kempston.
Were you close with your brother and sister?
Growing up, yes and no. I mean, I absolutely idolised my brother, and I still do. But there was a 5-year gap between us, and when you're at that age, it's quite a significant gap.
Yeah.
I was 11, he was 16. As I say, he was into all sorts, and he was training to get into the army. So I didn't necessarily see him too much or spend too much time with him. But I did idolise him. And then obviously when he'd gone, and just going into the army, you can be gone for long periods of time and then come back for a weekend. That, I think, looking back now, that was very difficult. Dad's gone, sister's gone, brother's gone. And then it's just me and my mum. And at that time, if you were a Wootton boy coming into Kempston, it was kind of like there was this turf wars thing going on, and it just opened me up to trouble and difficult moments, really. Yeah.
So what kind of stuff happened at that point? What trouble did you start seeing?
I just became an easy target, I think, for gangs, really, groups of people that, were young boys who wanted to prove themselves to each other. So I got into quite a lot of scrapes where I'd just be going about my business, and then, a group would spot me and it'd be like, it's the Wootton boy. And chase me, beat me up, that kind of thing. Which was difficult, but I just had to get used to it. It just became part of my life living in Kempston. But fortunately, where I moved to a part of Kempston called Hillgrounds. Don't know if you're familiar with it, and a road called Hartwell Drive. And I managed to make some really good friends from that area. They sort of took me in. They weren't judgmental of the fact that I was a Wootton boy or anything. As far as they were concerned, I'm on Hartwell Drive. They're on Hartwell Drive. We're from the same area. So, I started to get people around me that were like, hold on, we're not going to take this. If so-and-so is going to treat you like that, then we're going to back you up, kind of thing. So it got a bit easier as I got older.
Found your feet a little bit.
Yeah. But I did find it difficult. I did. And
were you close with your mum? Did you have a close relationship with her at that point?
Yeah, very, very. But my mum was going through such a difficult time. Like, she's suffered from serious depression. Also, she was there was a big moment in our life at that time. She was the victim of an armed robbery.
Wow.
Yeah. She worked at a hotel on reception, and one night she was on reception. Guys came in with guns, hammers, and things like that. Yeah. So that, she was already suffering from bad depression, and then that happened, and things just got progressively worse. But
God, that's awful.
Yeah, but she's a strong woman, and she came through it, and thank God she's good now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And you're still close?
Very close.
Good.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Always will be. I'm a mummy's boy.
nice. Yeah. And what about your relationship with your other family members now?
Yeah, brother, really, really strong relationship with my brother. So he lives a stone's throw away from me now. My sister, I love my sister to bits. We don't see each other as much as perhaps we should do, and we don't speak as much as we should do. But there's nothing behind that. There's no issue.
Yeah.
She's just got her life, I've got my life, and the two don't necessarily intertwine that much. But when we do see each other, it's all, it's all love, and yeah. So I've got a great brother and sister. Couldn't
that's
ask for
nice.
more. Yeah.
It's important, isn't it? Some families don't have that relationship with their brother and sister. I'm similar to you. I've got two older brothers, and we're all really close, which is, I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
Because the older you get, the more you realize that that's not actually a common thing at all.
No, that's very true. And do you know what? I so regularly think about how much I value my relationship with my brother specifically. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
And and you're right. And I see friends who don't have that dynamic with their siblings.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's sad to see. Obviously, sometimes there are some justifiable reasons for that being the case. But I couldn't imagine my life without the close relationship that I've got with Jay. Yeah.
And has that relationship, as your life has gone on and you've gone through some challenges and things which we'll speak about, has that relationship kind of helped carry you through that journey?
Yeah. I mean, he's there for me no matter what.
Yeah.
So whatever I was going through or whatever I will go through, I know that he's always there. But he's one of many, and I'm sure as we talk through this recording, you'll find out that I've had support and help from a lot of really important people.
Yeah. Good. That's good to know. So your sobriety journey, let's get stuck into it, because I know that you have so much to share, which is going to help so many people.
Yeah.
Now, I remember the first time I met you, you might not remember this, but the
Probably
first
not.
time I met you was in Mist.
Yes.
Opening night, I think it was.
Yeah.
You and Greg were DJing.
Yeah.
And if I'm correct, that was either the last time you were drinking quite a lot or very close to the last time you were drinking quite a lot. Because I think your journey started very soon after I met Greg.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
So shall we go back a little bit more and let's just talk about, when did you start drinking?
Around 14.
Okay.
So I mean, I grew up with my dad being a heavy drinker. So he socialized with people that loved to drink. I spent a lot of time at the pub growing up, so I was always around alcohol. And then at about 14 years of age, I can't pinpoint the specific time when I first had a drink, but I know it was around about that sort of age.
Yeah.
And what I very quickly established for me was that any issues that I had, anything that I wasn't comfortable with, any situations that I was going to go into that I didn't like the idea of, I found very quickly that alcohol was a thing for me that I could turn to try and numb myself or to get through a situation without really being present in that moment, if that makes sense. And
like a comfort blanket almost.
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to what I mentioned a moment ago about the issues I had in the area where I was living, if I wanted to go from A to B, there was a good chance something was going to happen. I started drinking before I'd go from A to B. So if I wanted to go down to my friend's house who lived in the other side of Kempston, I'd have a couple of beers at home, which sounds crazy, at 15, right? Just to go from there to there.
Wow.
But at the same time, I was playing playing a high level of football as well. So I was I'd played for Watford in their academy, and at the time I was at Northampton Town.
How did that go hand in hand then?
Not good.
Not well.
Not good, no. So I remember the last couple of seasons that I played for Northampton, it just went downhill for me. And that was primarily because of experimenting with alcohol and other things, to be honest with you. And there was one particular game we had a Boxing Day match, and I drank all Christmas Day. And I turned up to play on Boxing Day, and I was 16 at this point.
Yeah.
And the manager said to me, don't even bother putting your kit on.
Really?
Yeah, and that was it. And I knew that that was the end of it for me. And, you know,
Wow.
yeah, which was tough because my mum, God bless her, had driven me around the country, up and down the motorways, you know, for my whole teenage years, desperate for me to achieve this dream that I had.
Yeah.
And I just threw it all away, you
Yeah.
know, which I
Wow.
really regret now, you know, but at the same time, you know, obviously wasn't meant to be for me, so
Exactly.
it didn't happen. But
You're a big believer in that. Things
yeah,
always happen.
I am now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was.
Not at the time.
No, I wasn't at the time, but certainly
Yeah.
in recent years, I do believe that it's mapped out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's young though. If you go back to what you were saying about when you were 15, like leaving the house, having a couple of drinks, like that's something which maybe you might think of when you're a little bit older, when you're
Yeah.
like 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
But 15, that's really young to be having those thoughts
Yeah.
of, I need to like mentally prepare myself.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have some alcohol.
Yeah.
Were those feelings a gradual thing that came up, or did you kind of suddenly turn to alcohol?
I think it was quite sudden in terms of going from not drinking to drinking, so
Yeah.
to speak. But it wasn't like my real problems with alcohol didn't happen then.
Yeah.
They were gradual and they got worse in my older life. But
Yeah.
it was then that I realised if I needed something to make me feel differently or to cope with a scenario, my go-to was going to be alcohol. I knew that from a young age.
So you knew that at the time that's what you were doing?
Yeah, 100%. I knew that. And yeah, and every difficult situation I've had in my life since then, other than for the last 3.5 years, of course, I've turned to alcohol. Yeah.
Okay, so that was when you were about 16. What happened after that? What did life look like after that? What were you working? What happened after the football career ended?
Okay, so yeah, right. So football career ended.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, didn't turn up for most of my GCSE exams, so didn't get great grades from school.
Yeah.
And I remember my mum sitting me down in her living room, and I've never been scared of my mum, so to speak, other than this moment where she said to me, if you haven't got a job within the next 7 days, you're out, right? And this is the tough love that you need because you're throwing your life away, all of that stuff. And she meant it, right? A lot of mums will say that, and the child will think, yeah, you're not going to do that to me. But I could see it in her face, and I could feel it in her voice that she meant it.
Yeah.
So I went and got a job, and I got a job as a telesales advisor at a place called Granada at the time on Ampthill Road.
Yeah.
So many people from Bedford, when they hear that, will be like, Granada.
Yeah.
And
Did Greg work there?
Greg works there. Everyone worked there. It became box clever, and it was like a university environment. Honestly, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
I met so many great people there. But I blagged the job. So I went for the interview, and they said, like, what are you predicted in your GCSEs and everything? And I was like, straight A's, obviously, you know, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
But they gave me a chance, and obviously when no grades come through, they didn't really care because I was actually doing okay in the job, because it was all about speaking to people, and I just seemed to be quite good at that. So I worked, I must have joined there when I was 16, and I met a girl there called Sarah, and we formed a relationship, and when I was 18, she fell pregnant with Sophie, my eldest child.
Yeah.
And then Sophie was born. It wasn't a planned thing, so, you know, very soon after that, Sarah and I separated, but jointly done a good job of bringing Sophie up.
Yeah.
More so Sarah. But
what was that like then, becoming a dad at that age?
Just crazy. Just so crazy. I mean, I wasn't ready for it, you know. Looking back now, I wasn't ready for it. I thought I was, you know. I don't know why I was just in this zone where I thought I could conquer the world for whatever reason, and I don't know why. And I thought, you know, being a dad was going to be a breeze, and I've got this, and obviously very quickly reality set in.
Yeah.
It's very, very challenging, especially at that age. And I wasn't developed emotionally for that at all. I did not have the emotional intelligence to to be the best dad I could be at that time.
Yeah.
So, which sounds weird. I did the best I could do.
Yeah.
But obviously, if I had my time again, I would have waited because I would have been more ready.
Yeah.
And there's certain things in Sophie's life that could have been done better for her from a father's perspective. But, you know, I did the best I could do. I've got a great relationship with her.
Yeah. And Sophie wouldn't be here if that hadn't have happened.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
that's
And
a
actually,
blessing.
she was my biggest blessing at that point in time, which is an obvious thing to say.
Yeah.
But I was still up to no good in certain ways. And there was a road that I was going to go down. But because I've been brought up well by my mum, my brothers, obviously, as I say, you know, very solid person in my life, and my sister. My sister was great when Sophie was really young. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for any better.
Yeah.
But because I was brought up quite well in that respect, I knew that it was a case of, right, now you've got to change. You've got to not go down that road, and you've got to try and take it somewhere else, because this young child who hasn't been asked to be brought into this world has been brought into this world, and now you've got to do what you can do to give her an opportunity. So my character changed a lot at that point.
In what sense would you say?
In a sense of stupid things that I would get involved in previously, I would turn my back on. I definitely became more responsible as a person, and I realised that for every decision I made or every choice I made from that point forward, she had to come first.
Yeah.
Couldn't all be about me.
Yeah.
And you know, I won't go into specifics, but I was doing stuff that was the wrong side of the law and things like that. Whereas I came on the other side, and I thought, no, I'm not going to go over there. I'm going to come here. I'm going to try and do life properly. And get a proper job, try and progress on, do something different from where I was, earn more money, give her better opportunities. So yeah, it just changed me in that respect, where I just thought, right, now grow up a bit.
Time to get serious.
Yeah, become a proper man and make a go of it.
Yeah. And what was your drinking like during that time?
Still bad.
Still bad.
Yeah, but more bingey.
Okay.
Rather than regular.
Okay.
So I would not drink for 3 or 4 days. But then I'd go out with my mates, and I'd go hard for it. Do you know what I mean? And then the one thing I do remember from that time specifically was I used to play football on a Saturday. So obviously Sarah would be looking after Sophie all day while I'm out at football. And then I'd make a promise that I'd come back by a certain time, but I'd get in the bar and have a couple of beers. As soon as I'd had a couple of beers, all responsibility, all rational thinking just went out the window.
Yeah.
And the selfish me took over. I want to get smashed tonight. I want to go out with my friends. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I'd go, and I wouldn't come back until the early hours of the morning.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, as a 40-year-old man, now I can sit here and say that was so unfair on Sarah. But it was where I was at the time.
And it takes over you, doesn't it? You know, it's like you worked so hard before those on those days leading up to that to be different, and then you have a sip of alcohol.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Yeah. And it's always been like that for me.
Yeah.
It's like I've never been able to have 1 or 2 drinks. Not in my whole life. Some people say to me, then, well, you must have had occasions where you've had 1 or 2.
Yeah.
People might have seen me have 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And that's what I let you see.
That
but
was
when
at the start.
but when I go somewhere on my own, I'm necking stuff on my own.
Or even before they've even seen you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So all the sneaky stuff that goes with, you know, trying to hide a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Would you say you've got an addictive personality in general?
I don't think I have, which a lot of people might find weird, because people think that if you're an addict, you've got an addictive personality. I don't think I have.
Yeah.
I think it's just certain substances that once I get on them, I just lose control. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was more binging back then.
Back then it was, yeah.
And then did it gradually turn into a more consistent thing as time went on?
Yeah, I think the more regular, the more frequent drinking came in my late 20s, early 30s, when I was in a new relationship. I I'd had 2 children. The relationship was not a good relationship for me or for her, which we should have learnt very early on, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We let it progress, and it just became unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when drinking more and more regularly really started to become a part of my life. Yeah.
And it was that, were you turning to the alcohol then to just almost block out what was going on in your reality a little bit?
100%. Yeah, definitely. Just alcohol just became a comfort for me at that point in time. And I found every excuse to drink. It could be bad news, I better drink. Good news, I better celebrate.
Yeah.
No news, well, nothing's going on, I'll have a drink
Have
then.
a drink, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of, it just, any and every excuse to drink at that point, was my day-to-day life, really.
How much were you drinking? If there's an answer. There might not be a specific answer.
It would vary, but I'd probably say on average 4 to 5 beers a day, maybe. I would have some days where I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Generally, if I'm feeling rough from a blowout beforehand. But yeah, and I'd spread it out across the week, and I wasn't, weirdly at that point, I didn't feel like I was getting smashed at any point in time.
Okay.
I was just maintaining a level of like, okay, I can cope with stuff if I feel like this.
Yeah. So you were never, from an onlooker's point of view, you weren't necessarily drunk, if you know what I mean.
No.
But you were technically.
I was really good at hiding the fact that I'd been drinking.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite a common theme with a lot of addicts, is that, you've got an issue, you know that people are going to comment, judge, try and intervene or whatever. So you do quite a good job of keeping it under wraps.
Yeah.
So I'd just drink. It might be like I'd finish work, for example, and at the time, or for periods of time during this phase of my life, I was working in the city a lot. And I'd go to work during the day, and I'm in London, right? I'm not around anyone that I know necessarily. So I'd maybe drink at lunchtime, go back to work, come home, get to St Pancras, drink before I get on the train, drink on the train, coming home. And then, maybe 20 minutes before the train gets in at Bedford, not have another drink, get a coffee. Do you know what I mean? All these kind of things that will help disguise the fact.
Sober yourself up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd had what I needed to have. I'd had what I needed to have, which was to get that fix of alcohol and that little buzz or the little whatever people want to refer to it as. But I'd done it, and then I could do what I needed to do to disguise that I'd done it.
Yeah.
But I needed to do it. That was the thing. I needed to do it.
God, so it was a real calculated process of hiding it and really making sure that people didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah. And from that perspective, with the sort of snidiness and the sneakiness, honestly, like, if I could remember half of what I used to do, there'd probably be some crazy stories.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember any of them? Probably not.
Not really. No, not really. All I know is that I used to do some mad stuff and go and hide in certain places and down drinks, like literally down one after the other, before I then go into like a social setting or something like that. So
that's almost like taking you back to when you were 15 and having that alcohol for the comfort at the beginning before doing something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So when did you start to think, okay, I might have a bit of a problem, then maybe there's something I need to deal with here? The first time.
So I separated with my ex-wife, and I moved into a flat on my own in Kempston. And what I now know is I'm not good at being on my own.
Okay.
Like, I'm just not good at being on my own at all. And I'm happy to admit that.
Even now, to this day, would you say that?
Yep, definitely. I need someone or people around me for me to feel happy and content.
Okay.
So I moved into a flat on my own, and so I'd gone from sort of having a family around me, seeing my children every day, being dad that goes out to work, comes home from work, is around at the weekend. I'd gone from that to being in this flat on my own for most of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't go into the details of why, but we didn't fall into a routine with the children at the start. And I found that very, very difficult, not knowing the next time that I was going to see them,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that was when I know that that's when things got very serious for me from a drinking perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like I found myself drinking all the time, like
Okay.
morning, afternoon,
As
evening.
soon as you wake up, kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. There was a pub right next to my flat. I couldn't go out anywhere and come back to my flat without going into the pub
Mm-hmm.
every single time. Even though I'd say to myself sometimes, don't do that tomorrow.
Mm.
Just don't do that tomorrow. I couldn't. I'd go out, and as soon as I start the journey to go from wherever I was back to my flat, the obsession of getting that pub and have a couple of beers, you deserve it. You know, today's been tough.
Yeah.
Or you've had some good news today. Whatever it was. Again,
Yeah.
it was every excuse, but I'd just find myself in that pub
Yeah.
every time before I go back to my flat.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. So you knew that, okay, tomorrow I shouldn't do that. But
Mm.
then, it was almost like you were battling with yourself
100%.
already at that point.
Yeah.
You knew you shouldn't, but then you found an excuse to do it.
Yeah.
So how old were you at that time when all of that was going on?
So I would have been about 32,
Okay.
33
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah. Yeah, 32, 33, and I'm in this
Yeah.
flat on my own.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is as well, at the time I was earning really good money.
Mm-hmm.
God knows how. Like when I look back now, I think to myself, how did I ever manage to perform a job during that time? But I did.
Imagine what you could have been earning if you weren't drinking.
Exactly. Yeah. So for some people, that finances can be a constraint on if you drink or you take other things. Finances can halt you in that process, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, some people turn to crime to fund things, but for me, that was never an issue that I had to overcome. I had money, and if I wanted to drink, I could drink.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do other stuff, I could do other stuff. And I'd wake up in the morning and I wouldn't be financially harmed by my actions, which made it more difficult to see that I needed to stop this shit, you know?
Yeah. I can imagine actually,
Mm.
because when you're struggling financially, it then becomes an issue. And then you think, oh, that your attention kind of gets taken away.
Yeah.
But when you've got the money to do it and it's so accessible,
Yeah.
it probably feels like more of a luxury
Yeah.
than, you know?
Totally. And my thing used to be Thursday nights, right? I used to have a massive blowout on a Thursday night. I don't know what it was about Thursdays. So
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the week, I'd kind of drink and do other things to a certain point. But on a Thursday, I'd go hell for leather.
Okay.
Right. And the worst thing for me was the job I was in at the time, I got paid every Friday.
Okay.
And it was a big chunk of money that used to come in on a Friday.
Yeah.
Far more than I earn now, by the way. So it was almost like I'd wake up and I'd feel rough and I'd regret my actions from the night before. But it's okay because I've got a load of money in the bank. So I
It's
just
like you're
get
being
up
rewarded.
yeah. So I just you're right. It was very much like that. And
Yeah.
I'd just hang on to that as the positive. Like for all the negative stuff that was going on in my life and for all the wrong stuff that I was doing, that money's landed. So I'm good.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I saw it as such a comforting thing.
Yeah. Even on the Thursday night, that was probably going through your head.
Definitely.
You know, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but it's all right because tomorrow I'm going to be laughing, so
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
Yeah. I'll spend that 100, 200, 300 quid or whatever because I don't really care.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow it's going to be replenished.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was never a limiting factor for me at that time, which had I have been less financially comfortable, maybe things would have been different.
Yeah.
But
That's interesting. I think that's actually a topic which people don't really talk about, that relationship of alcoholism and having the finances to do it.
Yeah.
When actually, now that we're having that conversation, I think that's quite a big thing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, but I
Yeah.
can imagine that other people in the same situation will have felt the same things
Yeah.
in terms of, you know, what I'm doing and my behaviors are not harming me financially.
Mm-hmm.
They're not rendering me unable to provide for my children, because that's a big thing,
Yeah.
right? Had I have been doing that, but on a Friday I can't pay for my children
Yeah.
to do what they need to do, or
Yeah.
to eat, or to have clothes, then, you know, that I can almost certainly say I would have stopped at
Yeah.
that point in time,
Yeah.
or I would have seeked help earlier,
Yeah.
should we say, because I couldn't just stop, because
Yeah.
that's, as we'll go on to,
Yeah.
an addict can't just stop.
Yeah.
So I definitely would have gone for help sooner if my actions were harming my children. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's things that could have been done better for my children. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, my addiction and my drinking and this and that hasn't had any impact on my
Yeah,
children.
sure.
It has.
Yeah.
It definitely has, and other people around me.
I know what you're saying, though. Nothing was externally lacking from your drinking.
Yes.
It was just it was affecting things on a different level.
Yeah.
But nothing was going missing, if you know what I
Correct.
mean. Nothing, yeah.
Yeah,
I see what you're
that's a
saying.
fair way of putting it. Yeah.
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 And how long, I'm going to tell you why I'm asking this question, but how long have you been DJing for? When did you get into that industry? DJing and
Right,
all
so
the
the-
garage
the-
stuff you're doing?
The music industry generally,
Yeah.
I got into it when I was about 18.
Okay.
But at that point in time, I was actually an MC,
Okay.
and not a DJ.
Yeah. Natural on the mic over there.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, the reason I MC'd was primarily because the circumstances I was in at the time, I didn't have the money to be a DJ.
Okay.
To DJ, you needed to have money. It was all vinyl back then. And the equipment was expensive. The records were expensive.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have money behind you, you pretty much were a non-starter, because being a good DJ back then, or a standout DJ, was about having the latest records. And if you can't go out and buy the latest records, you might as well give up. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, the only way for me to be involved in it was to MC. And I loved it. I fell in love with garage music when I was 16, 17. I had
Yeah.
a tape from an event called Stush, which took place at Crystal Palace Football Club in
Yeah.
London. And on that, it was a DJ called Special K, right? Which won't mean anything to most people, but
Yeah.
if there's any garage heads watching or listening to this,
I
it'll
can think of the cereal, Special
yeah,
K.
yeah, that's what a lot of people say. But he was and he was a really good DJ, actually. He's not about anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
But on this particular tape, he played a record called Good Rhymes by The Click.
Tune. I
Do you
know
know which
that.
one I mean?
Yeah.
And it's got Creed doing the I'm the one with the lyrical flow to make
Yeah.
your mind blow.
Yeah.
And I learnt that rap, right?
Yeah.
Literally inside out, and I went everywhere. Then I used to do it at school, in the social area and whatnot. And I just fell in love with garage music, and I thought, I've got to be involved in this in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form. So I started sort of. I'm going off on a tangent here, but
No,
anyway,
that's fine. Carry on.
I started sort of writing my own lyrics, and then, like, in certain settings, just saying to people, "Here, listen to this, and I'd do it, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're actually quite good, you know." And then somehow, this lad I knew from Wootton, where I grew up, wasn't living at the time because I'd moved to Kempston, but I still used to hang around in Wootton a lot. A guy called, we went by the name of Chunky, his name was. Somehow he had links to a local pirate radio station.
Right.
And there was a pirate radio station in Bedford called Risk FM, right? And when I tell you Risk FM was the biggest and the best pirate radio station outside of London that's ever existed, in my view.
Yeah.
It was a massive thing, right? Everyone knew about Risk. Everyone would listen to Risk.
Yeah.
And Chunky had connections with Risk FM, and he was like,
Wow.
"We're going to get you on Risk FM." And I was like, "Whatever."
Yeah.
And literally the next day, he took me to this random house, right? Because pirate radio stations, obviously it was illegal activity, so it used to be run from whoever would let you, or whoever would take a brown envelope to let you broadcast from their property. And I went and I walked in, and all these people that I was listening to on the radio day in, day out were in this room.
Yeah.
And I just froze up.
Oh my God.
I literally froze up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
wow, that must have been quite surreal.
it was crazy. But what was even more crazy was at that point in my life, my exposure to drugs in the music scene was like nil.
Really?
Yeah, nil. I'd never been exposed to drugs, people taking drugs.
This is what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah.
The relation between that industry
Music, yeah.
and what you were doing at the time.
Yeah. But on this particular, I came in, and I won't say his name because I think it's unfair to mention people specifically. But this MC that I really looked up to, and he was on the radio every single day.
Yeah.
He came down the stairs, and the first thing he said was, "I need more drugs. Does anyone know?" And again, I was like, young boy.
Yeah.
And I just felt so scared.
Yeah.
Like, but weirdly, I liked it still.
Yeah.
Because I was in this place where they're broadcasting, and I know how many people are listening to this. And I know that when I get the courage to get on the mic and do my bit, loads of people are going to hear it.
Yeah.
And it's going to give me an identity that I desperately needed.
Yeah.
I needed an identity.
Yeah.
And becoming this MC was going to give me that. So yeah, that's how I got involved in that. Then Sophie was born.
Okay, so that was before Sophie came along.
Yeah, this was before. So this was from sort of 16 years of age. I got into MCing. So I'd done the pirate radio, and then my cousin, a guy called Paul, he ran an event called Rage with his friend Dave, and they used to do it at Esquire's in Bedford.
Yeah.
And it was an over 18s thing, but he was like, "You're coming and you're MCing, and I'm getting you in. I don't care what happens, right?" And he got me, and I got on the stage, and I did it, and I loved it. But again, I got smashed to give me the courage to do it. So done the radio, performed at Rage. Things went well. I had a good few years of going around doing various gigs, playing on various different radio stations. Then Sophie was born, and then it was taking up more of my time, but there was no money in it for me, so I had to be realistic and think, well, I need to do other stuff in that time that's more productive. So I took a bit of time out. And then in 2015, I think it was, I mean, I'd always kept my toe in, listening to garage, having a little mix here and there. I'd got some basic equipment at home so I could just have a play about. And then in 2015, I was on holiday in Mallorca, with the kids and the missus at the time, and I was so unhappy. Like, honestly, if I tell you how I was the saddest I've ever been in my life at that point in time. Yeah, just bad relationship, all sorts, And I took myself away, and I went and sat on the balcony in the room that we'd got, and I listened to some garage music for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and I just felt so good. I just felt so good, and I thought, I want this in my life. I need it in my life in some way. And at that point, I actually, from Mallorca, from that balcony, I messaged Greg. And I knew that Greg was involved with Garage Nation and various other things. And I'd sort of, from a distance, I'd seen his journey, because we were really good friends back in the day, but our lives had sort of drifted in a different direction. And I thought, I'm just going to ask him if there's any chance he could get me on a gig, right? Just, even if it's playing to 5 people or whatever, just get me on a gig and let me have a go, right?
If you don't ask, you never know.
Don't ask, you don't get. And I got a message back. "Hi mate, good to hear from you. Yeah, of course, let me see what I can do." Right? And I thought, okay, that sounds good. And then the next day I got a message saying, "Do you fancy doing Garage Nation?" Right?
No way.
The biggest garage brand in the world, right? "Do you fancy doing Garage Nation in Milton Keynes, room 2, first set, 9 till 10. I was like, "Mate, are you sure?" And he was like, yeah. Because he knew I could mix, right, from back in the day. Even when I was an MC, I'd jump on the decks and a lot of people would be like, "Oh my God, you're better than most of the DJs here." Like,
so that was to DJ at Garage Nation?
Yeah, to DJ.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Do you want to do room 2 Garage Nation?" And I was like, "Mate, I would absolutely love to." And I went and did it. There was quite a strict format in terms of what Garage Nation expect from a warm-up DJ at that point in time. And I remember Greg speaking to me before and being quite clear about, if you follow this format and you do it well, there will be future opportunities for you. If your ego takes over, right, and you go left with your set from what we're asking you to do, just being man to man, I'm just telling you now, there won't be another one. Right? So I thought, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. I want the opportunity. I need to toe the line. So I went in, I towed the line, I got another booking, played another warm-up set,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And I did various warm-ups, and gradually they were trusting me more and they were pushing my time up.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of we've arrived at where I am today, which is, you know, thankfully I play a lot of primetime sets.
Yeah.
I play a lot of sets with MCs that I never ever imagined I could work with.
You're smashing it now.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
You're doing
that.
a lot now.
Yeah, it's
Like,
good.
I
I
always
enjoy
see your
it.
things pop up and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. It is, and knowing your story as well. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I don't know it as in depth as what I'm learning now.
Yeah.
But like, it's so nice to see that, you know, when you know someone's been through the shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're now actually like smashing it. Like, I love that.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Yeah.
really, really kind of you to
Yeah.
say. And that kind of love and, you know, sort of kind words that you've just said, that I get that a lot from people.
Yeah.
And I can't even express to you how like nice it is when people say that. And people I went to school with, you know, I'll see them in the street and they'll be like, mate, you actually made it, kind of
Yeah.
thing. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
said you were going to do that,
Yeah.
and you're doing it, kind of thing. And that's really nice, you know.
Yeah.
It's not so much the people having I don't appreciation for what I'm doing now. It's more knowing
Yeah.
how I've got there.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, is when people recognize that and they're like, do you know what, you grafted, and
Yeah.
fair play,
Yeah.
because, you know, it's paid off, thankfully.
It's like so deserving. You know, everyone deserves success, I think. But when you have been through a journey like you have, when you see that person succeeding, it is just it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're always just like, yes, good. Like, makes you happy.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's quite a common theme that I think people underappreciate, is that, generally speaking, I think people want to see other people do well.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's a lot of this thought process that everyone wants to see everyone fail, which actually, by and large, I don't think is true.
I think there's certain industries where that's more so.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I agree with you.
Okay.
I think...
Question for you then. What industries?
I mean, this is a conversation which Carl, our producer, is going to be so bored of, because I literally mention it in every episode. But from moving from London to a smaller town like Bedford, I have noticed a real sense of, particularly in the fitness industry and in, I would say, the beauty industry, beauty wellness industries.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bitchiness, and just people. There are some people who really want to see people succeed.
Yeah.
And there are some people who, you know, want to collaborate and push each other on and support each other, which I'm all here for. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
But there are some people who really don't. And it surprises me.
Yeah.
Because I'm of that same mindset as you, where why wouldn't anyone want to see someone else succeed?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why anyone would have that mindset.
Yeah.
But what I've learned through conversations which I've had is there's often a back story to that particular person and their insecurities and their, you know, their own reasons of not wanting to see other people succeed because of their own lack of limiting beliefs and things like that.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And which is sad, isn't it?
Which is really sad.
It's sad, and it's more of a reflection on that individual.
Yeah. 100%.
Which is sad. Don't get me wrong. There are people like that in the garage scene or the music scene.
Yeah.
You know, that
it's probably in every industry, isn't it? To some
a degree. Yeah. But I think, just going back to what I said a moment ago, I think by and large people want to see people do well.
Yeah.
I think there is a minority of people who, like you say, based on their own issues, want to see everything go wrong for everyone.
Yeah.
But that's sad.
We won't give our energy to those people.
We won't.
That's
no,
fine.
No, we'll turn our back on them.
Yeah. But you're doing amazing now.
Thank you, Nat.
So when you were just getting into all the DJing and it was becoming a bit of a thing, you were doing the Garage Nations and you were getting bigger in that scene.
Yeah.
How did you manage, if you did manage, the whole drinking and the issues surrounding drinking when you were working? Like, was it something that you then relied on when you were working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it provided the perfect platform and the perfect excuse for me to abuse alcohol and other things. And in my mind, justify it, because this is the scene I'm in. This is what people do. So I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just part and parcel of it.
Yeah.
And I used to drink a lot before I played, a lot whilst I played. And then the one thing that I recognised, and I even recognised when it was happening, was I would drink before, I would play the set and drink and do other things during the set, and I would be up here. Yeah. And then the set would finish.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to come down here. I'd want to keep going like this.
Yeah.
So for me, like where I'm at now, for example, I'll play a set and I can't wait to get home, and I can't wait to get into bed and say goodnight to Hollie or good morning, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But now, then it was, I'm on a trajectory to get high, and that's where I'm going. No one's going to stop me.
Yeah.
And it's unless you've been a DJ or a performer, it's very hard to explain to people what that high feels like when you're performing.
Yeah.
And then you chasing that after.
Yeah.
And that's how I got myself into a lot of messy scenarios where I'd constantly be trying to stay on that high or get higher. And it just becomes a big car crash.
Yeah.
To be truthful.
And what did those car crash moments look like and feel like? Because obviously when you're high and you're loving life, at the time that's great.
Yeah.
But the day after or the days after, when you weren't feeling like that, what were those days like? What was life like on the days where you were coming down?
Horrible. Like, it's such a horrible place to be. And for addicts, we describe it as like the pain and the terror of what you do before those scenarios. You actually try and convince yourself that you're not going to go there. Like, on this occasion, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And I've got the willpower to not do it. And then all of a sudden you haven't got the willpower and you're there and you've done it and you're in that cycle of regret and remorse. It's so painful. It really is. And what's more painful is recognizing the hurt that you cause people around you. So it's not just about me.
Yeah.
Even though in those moments I'm very selfish, or I was very selfish, and I made it all about me, but the collateral damage that I'd do to people, and the pain that I would cause them, and for my journey specifically, Hollie, I put her through a lot. That was hard. It was hard. But the problem is, like, I used to, instead of recognizing and taking responsibility for the pain that I'd caused, I try and defend myself.
Yeah.
And that's muggy, and when I look back now, I think, these are behaviors of an addict, because, I knew it was going to happen again. So I needed to try and make out that it's not such a big deal.
I hear what you're saying, but also you didn't know any better at the time. Otherwise you wouldn't have done it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So as much as saying it was muggy, and you probably regret it.
Yeah.
Have some kindness to yourself, because if you weren't in that situation, you wouldn't have done that. Otherwise you wouldn't be saying that now,
100%. And I appreciate that. I think, but what I recognize now, having been through the process I've been through, is that actually I wasn't of sane mind back then.
No.
So anything I was doing was from a place of illness, essentially, because addiction is an illness.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And, the decisions I was making, the things I was doing, the way that I was treating people wasn't the true me. It was the illness, causing those actions, making those decisions. But, I still caused people pain, and I have to accept that.
Yeah.
And I regret it massively. But like you've said, I've learned to be kind to myself. I've forgiven myself. I've asked for forgiveness from the people that I feel like I needed to. And I've moved on.
Yeah. And if those people didn't care about you, they wouldn't still be here. So
100%.
that speaks 1,000 words as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what was the pivotal moment that you had where you went, I really need to get some help, like really badly now. This has gone too far.
Yeah. So I'd had a few attempts at trying to get myself straightened out.
Let's talk about those actually quickly.
Yeah.
So when were those attempts? Was that throughout the years, various different times, or was it more kind of towards the end?
So I've been sober now for best part of 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to me becoming sober properly, I'd probably say in the 2-year period leading up to that, so
Mm-hmm.
from probably 2019, no, maybe a bit more than that, maybe 2018 to 2021,
Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 attempts, and I tried to do things that I thought would help me. So, for example, I signed up for a boxing match.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 boxing matches actually, and I thought that the training side of that and needing to get my body in good order
Yeah.
would get me off the drink and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And that once I'd had the fight, I'd be okay, and that I could just stay off everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, I couldn't. I'd go for maybe 2 months,
Okay.
and then I'd start to like sneak off for a beer here and there.
Were you clean up until the boxing fight?
No,
No.
unfortunately, I couldn't. I
Yeah.
tried to be during the training, but I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I was cleaner, shall we say?
Yeah.
I'd maybe go 3-4 days without having a drink or
Mm-hmm.
anything else, but then I'd
Mm-hmm.
just have a massive binge and set myself back.
Yeah.
Which again, it's just the illness. I just couldn't help it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did in those years leading up to my sober date, as I
Yeah.
now call it.
Yeah.
The longest I went was 6 months.
Okay.
Right, and you can imagine you're 6 months in, and you're thinking,
That's good
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
6 months.
and I'm thinking, I've cracked it here.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Mm.
And then just literally, like, and I can't even pinpoint what, why, when, where. I just
Yeah.
started drinking again,
Mm.
just out of the nowhere. But it starts with, I can just have one, and then so I'd go to a pub which was on the way to my friend's house, who I do a lot of the music stuff with,
Yeah.
and I'd stop and I'd have a drink, and I'd think that's only one,
Yeah.
but then the next day that I do it, I'd have 2 there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd have 2 on the way back.
Yeah.
And it just builds like that,
Yeah.
because what it is just this illness just getting back into me.
Yeah.
And what they say with addiction is it's actually a progressive illness. So believe it or not, the longer you stay sober for, the worse an addict you become. So if you have a
Okay.
relapse, you'll go harder than you were before.
Wow.
100%. Yeah.
Do you know what that's similar to? No, by no means in the extreme of it, but like, when people excessively diet
Yeah.
and then they deprive themselves of loads of things and then
Yeah.
they lose loads of weight really quickly.
Yeah.
And then the minute they go back to eating normally, they then gain a shit ton more weight than what they were originally.
Yeah.
Because you've deprived yourself for a
Yeah.
certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So I can see the same, not to the same, obviously.
Yeah, no,
detriment,
but the similarities,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my friends, who I'm sure we will speak about more, but he's been an
Mhm.
absolute crucial factor in my sobriety.
Yeah.
He has a saying. He says that whilst we're in recovery, our addiction is out there doing press ups, getting stronger,
Yeah.
getting ready for you to slip up. Because
Mm.
when you do, it's going to get hold of you a
Mhm.
lot harder than it had you before.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that keeps me.
Yeah.
I'm so scared of that.
Yeah. I was going to say, does that scare
Oh,
you?
I'm so scared of that. Like, the thought of that just scares the life out of me.
Mm-hmm.
So in and amongst all the other work that I do to stay clean and sober,
Mm-hmm.
that fear
Yeah.
needs to be with me.
Yeah.
Has to be with me.
And that's getting you through.
Yeah,
Getting you through
that
it.
and other things. Yeah, that and other things.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a big factor
Mhm.
in me knowing that I won't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did the boxing match.
Yeah.
Was there anything else after that before?
Not really.
Yeah.
So
When was the sober date then?
sober date was the 3rd of August 2021.
Okay.
And it came about, so I'm going to rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
So I met about a year and a half prior to that. I met a guy called Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And we met, in fact, no, that was longer than that. I met him probably 2-3 years before that, actually. And
Mhm.
we met at a rave in Milton Keynes. I was
Okay.
DJing at Unit 9.
Yeah.
And I'd done my set and I came out to the toilets and this guy just started talking to me in the toilets,
Yeah.
right? And it was Paul.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at him thinking, God, you're a bit of a mess. Right.
Yeah.
Seriously. And he won't mind me saying that.
Yeah.
And he was like into all sorts at that
Mhm.
point in time.
Mhm.
But he was a really lovely fella, right? He had just positive things to say to me
Yeah.
in the toilet.
Yeah.
And he was just a nice guy, right? And he started sort of messaging me through Facebook after. And he loves the garage scene and he loves raving. And the fact that I was a DJ, I think he just wanted to talk to me and whatnot, which I didn't mind because he was
Yeah.
polite, he was friendly, and he would say to me, "Where are you playing this weekend?" You know, those kind of
Yeah.
things. Do you mind if I come? All this kind of stuff. And I thought, even though he looks a bit of a mess, I'm not going to judge him.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him my time.
Yeah.
And thank God I did, because I then didn't. So we spoke a bit and then we lost contact and I didn't see him for a while.
Mhm.
And then I saw him again at Unit 9.
Mhm.
And this time he was well built. He
Right.
had a tan. His hair was done nice.
Yeah.
He looked like a completely different person.
Yeah.
And he's drinking Red Bull.
How
right?
long was the gap in between when you hadn't seen him?
I'd probably say about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, there was about a year from not seeing him to then seeing him
Yeah.
in this rave. And honestly, he looked $1 million, right?
Yeah.
He really did. And I went and spoke to him and he said, I'm clean and I'm sober
Wow.
and I'm happy. And
Yeah.
I was like, and at this moment, I was struggling with alcohol and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I was like, mate, I'm so pleased for you. It's brilliant to see you looking so healthy and
Mhm.
whatnot. And he was like, yeah, no, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't honest with him. I was like,
Mm.
I'm fine, you know, I'm
Didn't
cool.
tell him anything.
No, I didn't tell him anything. But I think he knew. And what he then started to do, we reconnected and he started to come out with me to gigs and things like that. And he would, in his own words, he sows seeds and he does
Mhm.
it with everyone. If
Yeah.
he notices and he feels that someone's got an issue, he'll sow seeds. He won't call someone out because that's the wrong thing to do,
Yeah.
right? But he'll just sow little seeds so that people know if they get to a point where they feel they need help,
Yeah.
there's someone to turn to,
Yeah.
right? And he kept sowing seeds with me.
I love that. That's a
Yeah.
really nice way to do
It's
things.
brilliant. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. And he's a godsend. And he came to one gig. I was doing a brunch in a place called The Flute in Bedford.
Mhm.
Big up Louis and Jen. And I was I was quite bad at this point in time, and
Yeah.
I think people could see,
Okay.
you know, if you knew,
Yeah.
like he did, he could see it.
Yeah.
And he came up to me and he was like, "Mate, I'm just going to put this book in your bag." So he put this book in my bag and he said, "Look, don't take it the wrong way, but I want you to have a look at this book in your own time."
Yeah.
And it's what's called the Big Book, the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book.
Okay.
And it's like the Bible to recovering addicts. He put it in my bag and I took it home and I put it under my bed, didn't look at it for
Mhm.
ages, right? Honestly, for so long.
What were your first thoughts when you saw that was the book you'd put in there?
When I first saw it, I thought, he's misunderstanding my situation.
Right.
I haven't got a problem.
So at that point, you didn't think you had a problem?
Not really. I think I probably subconsciously knew I did.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to accept it.
Yeah.
So I took the book home and I did nothing more with it. And and then so going back to my sober day of the 3rd of August,
Yeah.
2021, Paul had been sowing these seeds all the way through.
Yeah.
And then on this particular day, I was going out to DJ. A couple of my friends had put on a charity football match.
Yeah.
And they'd asked me to DJ.
Yeah.
And it was a Sunday. And what had happened up to this point, every time I'd gone out and I'd gone on a massive bender or I'd sort of gone into the depths of bad drinking and this and that,
Mhm.
when I'd come home and I'd decided that I was finished,
Mm.
Hollie would be distraught.
Okay.
Honestly, she'd be in pieces. Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing it to me?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it to the children? You're going to throw your life, like, honestly, like absolutely distraught.
Yeah.
And on this one day, she said to me, I was going out to DJ on a Sunday, and she said, I'm so worried. And I was like, what are you worried about? She was like, well, you're DJing, you're in and around friends, there's a bar there, you know, I'm just worried that you're going to
Mm.
do what you do.
Mm.
And I spoke to her in a pretty bad way,
Mm-hmm.
made her feel terrible for, how dare you say that to
Mm-hmm.
me? It's a Sunday. You think I'm going to do that on a Sunday and this and that? And I went out after we'd had a bit of a heated conversation,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, I'm going to show you. I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm going to
Okay.
be cool, and I'm going
Yeah.
to come home at midnight,
Yeah.
like I said I would,
Yeah.
and you'll see.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Okay.
And I didn't come home that night,
Okay.
and I didn't come home the next day.
Okay.
And I went off doing what I did when I was in that zone,
Mm-hmm.
completely selfish. When I did come home, I saw a different look on her face,
Mm.
and I knew at that moment she was done
You've
with me.
taken it too far.
Yep, she was done with me.
Yeah.
And that was when I had what in recovery we refer to as the gift of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like my life had become completely unmanageable,
Mm-hmm.
and it was through drink and other things. And I just knew in that moment that I couldn't throw her away.
Wow.
Mm.
So it was Hollie really
Yeah.
that did that.
Yeah.
Wow. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So it was that powerful moment of realizing that I've got something good here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to throw it.
Mm-hmm.
And with Paul having sown all these seeds all the way through, I just thought, now's the time. So I rang him on that day.
Was this on the 3rd of August?
Yeah, on that day. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was still probably intoxicated at the time.
So this was literally you'd come back from your bender for
Yeah.
a couple of days.
Yep.
3rd of August, and then
Yep.
straight away.
And
Yeah.
I phoned him and I said, Paul, I'm ready.
Wow.
And he was like, you sure? And I was like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, right, okay. And it was literally like a robot. He went, right, you got to do this, do this, do this, do this. And he gave me a load of things to do, which included things like tomorrow, wake up. He said, you're going to find this crazy. He goes, wake up and meditate, right?
Yeah.
He goes, I want you to send me 10 things that you're grateful for, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these things. And then he said, and then tomorrow you're going to attend a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really quick,
Yeah.
and it was quite overwhelming at the time.
Yeah.
But I knew I was ready, and I knew that I needed to do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had a good person in Paul to guide me through that
Mm-hmm.
process. So I thought, I'm going to trust in him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a good example because he was clean and sober.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm prepared to do what I need to do. So I did the things he told me to do. I then went into a meeting, and that was a life-changing experience for me.
Was
like,
it?
Oh, honestly, like that moment when you say, and I won't disclose too much about what happens in the meetings
Sure.
and things like that because it's quite a sacred
Of
process
course.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that moment when you introduce yourself and you just say, oh, I'm Sean and I'm an addict,
Yeah.
that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Like to actually let my guard down
Yeah.
and admit that. It sort of gets me emotional thinking about
Yeah.
it now. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just such a powerful moment to say that and to be not be judged.
Mm-hmm.
All these people in this meeting were in the same boat, and had a common goal, which is
Mm-hmm.
to just stay free of all of these things that can fuck your life up.
Yeah.
So it was super powerful, and it was massively eye-opening as well, because in this meeting, there was such a diverse range of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a barrister.
Really?
There was a barrister.
Wow.
Right? That's one end of the scale.
Yeah.
Then there's a career criminal at the
Yeah.
other end of the scale. But no one judging anyone.
Yeah.
We're all here to try and help each other through
Yeah.
and get on the right side of our problem.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's what happened. Yeah, so that was the 4th. So on the 4th is
Yeah.
when I attended the meeting, and then Paul became my sponsor
Mm-hmm.
and took me through what's called the 12-step program,
Mm-hmm.
and I got through it in like record time.
Really?
Yeah, like Paul's sponsored a lot of people,
Yeah.
and he said to me, he goes, look, if you want to do this, let's do it quick. Let's
Mm-hmm.
get through it. Let's get you right, and let's get you enjoying your life. And that's what I did. I literally I had the I had the advantage of being self-employed, so I could spend a lot of time doing it, whereas perhaps others have to go to work and try and find
Yeah.
time around work. So it's
Yeah.
not perhaps as quick and easy for other people. But yeah, I just at every moment I could, I was doing work with Paul,
Yeah.
getting through the steps,
Yeah.
got through them in record time, and just
How long was
haven't
that
looked back.
process then for you?
I think it took me about 40, 42, 43 days, if I remember rightly.
Okay. That's not long at all.
No, it's not long. A lot of people take a lot longer
Do
than
you know
that.
what the average time
I
is for
don't,
people? It's probably different for
unfortunately.
everyone.
Yeah, I don't. If Paul was honestly, he's
Yeah.
like the book of knowledge when it comes to. If he
Yeah.
was sitting here now, he'd tell you to the minute
Yeah.
how long
Yeah.
people normally take.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But I just got through it as quick as I could.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I've never looked back now.
How did you, I just want to go back a second. How did you feel? Two questions, actually. How did you feel before you went into that meeting? What was going through your head the first time?
I was nervous because I didn't know what to expect,
Mm-hmm.
and I was also aware that people speak, and you're
Yeah.
kind of not expected to speak, but it helps you if you do speak and share and
Yeah.
things like that. And I felt quite nervous about that, which is weird because I'm so used to being in the spotlight in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But in those moments, like the vulnerability side of it, I was not hugely comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But I did speak to Paul about that before. And again, just being the great support that he is,
Yeah.
he said, the best thing for you to do, introduce yourself, tell people it's your first meeting, and just say, all I'm going to do is listen.
Yeah.
If you guys are all right with that, right?
Yeah.
Which they obviously they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just listened and I took it all in. And I remember, so at each meeting, someone gives like a share, a main share where they talk for 20 odd minutes about their experience
Okay.
and whatnot. So inspiring that some of the things that
Yeah.
I've heard in there, just honestly,
I can imagine.
most inspiring sort of comebacks.
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, stories that you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah.
And I listened to this share and it just, and this is what it's all about, right? I was day one and I think the person sharing was like 10 years clean.
Okay.
And you hear it and you think, I want that. I want that so bad. And I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to be you.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. From that point, I just thought, whatever I have to do, I'm going to do because I'm not going back to where I've just come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful, isn't it? Oh my
Yeah.
God. And then how did you feel straight after that meeting?
Really good. Really good. Weirdly, I kind of thought that the fact that I'd been into a meeting would have smoothed things over with Hollie.
Did it not?
No.
I don't blame her, to be fair.
No, which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, she was proud of me,
Yeah.
but I think there was still that seed of doubt in her mind. Am I just doing it to overcome this
Yeah.
argument or bad situation that we were in?
Yeah.
So it took a while, I think, for me to persuade her that actually this is it, I'm doing this. And obviously she's been a great support for me. And actually, leading up to that, she'd told me on numerous occasions that she felt I had an issue
Okay.
and that I was in denial,
Yeah.
and that one day it's going to be too late, you know. So all of that had led me, as well as Paul sowing the seeds.
Yeah.
Her saying that to me regularly had sort of led me there as well.
Yeah.
But no, she's been the best support that I could have ever wished for. Through my process, and we celebrate my sober date like it's my birthday.
Really?
Yeah, and like a lot of people in recovery say, when you come into recovery, you get 2 birthdays because you have your actual birthday and then you celebrate your sober date.
Yeah.
And it's just so nice to know that I've done the work I need to do. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
And I continue to do the work. I'll be honest with you, I'm not
Yeah.
going to sit here and tell you I go to meetings every week because
Yeah.
I don't now.
Yeah.
I did at the start intensely because I think everyone's journey is different, right? So there's some people that are 10 years clean and sober and still need to go to meetings 2-3 times a week. I don't feel that I do, but I do other work outside of the meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
But what I do have, Nat, is every now and then I'll just feel like going to a meeting.
Okay.
Like it would just, I don't know, I'll just start thinking about it, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's a sign
Yeah.
that I'm starting to think about going to a meeting. So I should go to a
Yeah,
meeting. So
listen to it.
I'll go to a meeting. I'll listen to someone's story. I meet a few people. I pat a few people on the back.
Yeah.
You know, and I love nothing more than seeing someone who's like a week in.
Yeah.
And telling them, do you know how good your life's going to get?
Yeah.
If you just stick with this.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Stick with
Yeah.
it. Get through it, because your life is going to change, mate. And it's going to be so good.
Have you sponsored anyone, or would you sponsor anyone?
So
I'm not sure what the
I
process.
haven't sponsored anybody, which, you know, some people in recovery would be like, oh, you should be sponsoring people, you should. But the reason I haven't is because I have a really hectic, busy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't give someone everything they need,
Mm-hmm.
then I don't want to ruin a chance. They could have somebody better than me, is what I'm trying to say, right? But what I do, and I actively do it, is I seek out people to help and to put them on the pathway.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, I've had a fair few people, because they know that I'm prepared, willing, and want to help them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come to me and I'll put them in the rooms for a meeting. I'll try and connect them with a sponsor.
Yeah.
They can speak to me about the process when they're at the point in the process. So I give back in that way, because it's really important that you do that.
Yeah.
You can't, well, it would be wrong of me to receive the gift of recovery and not pass it on in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
So I do it in the best way that I can.
Yeah.
There will come a time in my life where I'm in a better position and I will sponsor people.
Yeah.
But
You've got so much time ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly. But when I do that, it will be when I know that I can give that person or those people everything that they deserve in their journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair enough. And just having this conversation today, even if one person listens to this, you're sending them in the right direction.
100%. And I think that message is really important, that if you feel like you've got an issue, first of all, you probably have. If you feel like that, you probably have.
Yeah.
And you're not alone. You know, I always felt for some reason that I was unique, like that other people aren't doing this, what I'm doing. So that's why I'm not going to make anything of it, because, but the minute you know you're not alone and that there's millions of people in the same boat, it's very comforting. So you've got to make that initial step to accept that your life has become unmanageable, and that's through alcohol or other substances.
Yeah.
And reach out.
Yeah.
And people can contact me via Instagram, Facebook. You know, I'm easy to find. Just Sean Harvey DJ. Send me a message, DM me, and I'll put you in contact with people, and I'll put you on the path to a better life.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that's the perfect place to end the conversation. I was going to ask you a final question, but you've just answered it. Okay. My final question was going to be, what advice would you give to anyone who's at that beginning stage of thinking they might need help? Yeah. But you've basically just answered that. If there's anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. I just really hope that this does resonate with somebody. And, you know, if I can do it, I know it's the old cliche, if I can do it, anyone can, but that is true.
Yeah.
Like, the process is proven, it works. All you've got to do is make that step, make that first step, and you'll recover from your illness and your addiction, and life is so much better. That's all I can say.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You've been an amazing guest.
Thank you,
and I know this is going to help more than one person.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. And thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment and share. And I'll put all of Sean's Instagram and everything in our comments below. So if you have been able to resonate with anything that was mentioned in this episode, please do reach out to Sean. He's amazing and he can definitely help you. Thank you so much.